but for some reason it was mute. All right, guys, like I said, welcome on board to number 6 of our live session, the official CyberLynk Nerd Night sessions. Today, we're going to be touching base on some of the things that we were essentially finalizing the conversation we started last week around, the TCP/IP, the OSI model, how things actually work behind the scene. Because ultimately, having that background information and background knowledge on how the internet kind of fits together is essential to ensure that you guys know how things actually works. But when you do type in something on your browser, you know how that actually goes off and all of the different components or the different activities that need to take place for your browser to load that or for the application itself to work. So we spent some time doing that tonight, just unpacking that a little bit more, and we will also spend some time on the evolution of IP addresses globally since the 1980s, how we started from IPv4 to IPv6, what the impact of that is, there was a need to even get IPv6 in the first place, and I sent you guys already the IPv6 vulnerability, the buffer overflow vulnerability that's critical, that's out there at the moment. So that's probably another thing to read. If we have some time, we can spend some time doing that as well. But after we go through that initial introduction, Nathan would actually be taking us through a live demonstration of how to set up GitHub for the first time. So I'll quickly share my screen so you guys can obviously see where this thing currently is, where we are. And there we are. Let me know if you can see it. Can you guys see the screen?
Yeah.
Yep, we do.
Awesome.
I do.
So again, we've gone through the quick introduction of Nathan, Mr. Awesome, and like I said, we just talked through some of the key things here. So last week we were spending some time, especially around the OSI model, how there are different, there are seven different components within the all different pathways within the OSI model. How that goes from the bit layer, which is the physical layer, to all the way to the application layer where you have HTTP, FTP, and all of the different web protocols that we ultimately need to be able to do the work that we do on an ongoing basis. Today, I wanted us to sort of finish on that, and also spend some time around the TCP/IP, um, how that works, and perhaps spend some time on IP addresses. So on the IP address, perhaps I'll do that here before I go into the demonstration lab. One of the things to keep in mind is that when the IPv4 was initially created, no one thought of the fact that we were ever going to get to the point where the word would use more than 4.3 billion different IP addresses. And initially, everyone thought that that's massive. There is no way we're ever going to run out. But as the population of the world kept exploding, there are more interconnected devices. As technology began to take off, there became a need to create a completely different IP protocol that would actually, when I say IP, I mean Internet Protocol, that would ensure that devices have almost like an address. That's really what an IP address is, right? It's a token that identifies the device and enables it to communicate across the network. And it's usually great for that token to be unique across the board. Now, when I say unique, I don't necessarily unique all the time. It's unique. It's a point in time uniqueness. So basically, how this would work is on a normal infrastructure environment, in a real world environment, you would have the DHCP server leasing out IP addresses to different endpoints and different peripherals and devices on the network who want to communicate with each other. And then ultimately, once that device gets that IP address, the DHCP would actually set a limit on how long they're supposed to hold that IP address for, but it means that that IP address for that point in time is unique to that device. There are obviously more complex topics around, dual home network adapters where you can have multiple IP addresses on the same host and what have you. So obviously the MAC address and all of that. So those are slightly out of scope here, but really talking about the IP address. So the IPv4 address is actually a 32-bit block of IP or block of binary numbers, really, if you want to put it that way. Again, because we're talking about what binary is and how everything directly relates back to binary. So how this is basically broken down is that since we know that 8 bits is equals to 1 byte, so if there are 32 bits here, it means that ultimately there are 4 bytes in here. So 32 divided by 8. That's really how this works. So basically what's happening is within the IP address block. So an example is like if you have 10.10.10.10, there are actually 4 bytes which are called octets. So one of the bytes, the 10 before the dot. So let me quickly demonstrate this. Give me a second. So if we come here for a second, and I'll make that big. So basically what I was trying to describe is that each one of these 10 here actually represents 8 bits, which is equals to 1 byte. So 8 bits makes a byte. And as you can see here, there are 4 of them, and that's why you have 8 times 4 actually equals 32. That's where that number, that 32-bit number is coming from. And this is why the IPv4 address can only technically have 256 IP addresses, including 0. Now, quite often, usually no one would give 0 as an IP address because that would most likely be used for a network address. So therefore, there are technically 255 available IP addresses. Now, that's if you're talking about public IP addresses. For the local network, it's more likely to be 254 because 255 will become the broadcast address. So the broadcast address is actually the address that is used for all of the network peripherals within the same subnet to be able to communicate with each other. So I wanted to actually spend a little bit more time on that. So I'll screw up here just to show you guys. So like I said, there are currently 5 different classes of IP addresses. So there's class A, class B, class C, class D, class E. So this is one of the things that would come up quite often. People only know the first 3 classes because that's what they have to deal with on a day-to-day basis. So class A starts from 1.1 to 126.255.255.255. So this 255 here is actually representing the total available numbers that are included within a 32-bit numbering system, which is obviously based on the binary based 2 numbering system. So if you have a look at this, that 255 is telling you that it cannot go above that. That's the end of it. It's used to denote this is the end of this is the end of this octet, this is the end of this octet. So you're using every single bit. So every single bit here is raised to 1. And when every single bit in an octet is raised to 1 from 0, that is actually called a subnet mask. So you can see here it goes from here, so that's where the class A is, and that's where the class B is. So class B starts from 128 all the way to 199, 191.255.255. So literally just one short of 192, and that's why 192 starts from here, 00 all the way to 253. And if you're looking at this with me and you're looking at it as keenly as I'm looking at it, one thing you probably notice is that there is a pattern, and that pattern here is essentially this goes from 10000 to 126 255 255 255 all the way, and then we had again it starts with 0 again. So the same thing the pattern that you're seeing here, it looks like it goes from 11:59 p.m. and then it goes to 0 and then starts to count from 1 again, and it comes to 11:59 again, as if you're looking at it from a clock point of view. That's ultimately what is happening here. So it zeroes out and then it starts counting again. It zeroes out and starts counting again. So all the numbers that are between 254.0.0.0 to 239.255.255.255, all the numbers between these two are ultimately what is available within this class D IP address. So class A, class B, class C are usually the ones that are mostly used, that people are aware of. Class D is used for multicast. So multicast is basically the quickest way to describe this is when you have joined the network and you don't have an IP address assigned to you. Automatically, your computer will assign a multicast address. So the multicast address actually enables you to be able to then be ready for when a DHCP is available to give you an IP address. So the DHCP is Dynamic Host Configuration Protocol, which basically dishes out IP addresses across the network. Now, the reason I'm going through and explaining this is that I want everyone to have a strong background and a strong understanding of how the IP network actually works, because every single thing in cybersecurity falls back to this, right? When we're talking about indicators, it comes right back to IP addresses, it comes back to port numbers and all of this. So all of this fundamental knowledge ultimately come together to become something that is useful once we begin to get into advanced topics. And then class E IP address is not publicly available to people, so this is reserved for research and future use purposes. So this is reserved for an organization called IANA. I actually forgotten the full acronym for that. That's probably something that you guys can research to find out what organization is responsible for managing IP addresses. So if I scroll all the way down here, one of the things that a lot of people struggle with is being able to differentiate between private IP address from public IP address. So I've gone through and I've kind of put that together for you guys just to give you an opportunity to see it. So wait, that was actually what I was describing. My bad. So private IP address here. These are all the private IP addresses. 10.10.10.10 to 10.10, 10.255.255. So these are all the private ranges within the 10 block. So it basically means that everything from 1 to 9 would all be public IP address. So you can see that here. So usually what I would say is when, as an analyst or as a cyber defender, and you're looking at the log message and you're not quite sure whether that IP address you're looking at is a private IP address or a public IP address, the easiest way to tell would be to look at the first octet. So where the number starts kind of tells you whether it's a public IP address or a private IP address. Now, that can also be deceiving as well, especially in the Class C range, because in Class C, only 192.168.0.0 to 192.168.255.255 are actually private IP address. So, which means that anything else outside of these two up to octet here would be public IP address. So, if you have a look here for Class C, you can see the whole of 192, aside from 192.168, is all public IP address. So looking at the first octet and the second octet is usually a really good place to know whether it's a private IP address or a public IP address. And when in doubt, obviously go ahead and research it. But the reason this is important is when you're doing an investigation or trying to detect threat, and you're wondering, is this public or is this private IP address? That's where you need to actually go and look into this. I've said quite a fair bit there. Does anyone have any question? Sorry, I can't see you guys. So, does anyone have any question?
No.
I'm okay, thank you.
Cool, awesome. Look, I've just looked at the time in the interest of time. I can send out the diagram for the TCP/IP network. I can also send out this information here. It's really important just to understand that the difference between TCP/IP and the OSI model is that the TCP/IP is actually specifically designed for internet communication. So it simplifies the 7 different components within the OSI model into 4, and that includes something called link. I'll show you guys here. So you have the internet layer, the link layer, and then you have the application layer, and then I believe, if I remember, there's 4 of them, and then the transport layer. So application layer, transport layer, internet layer, and link layer. So again, there's a lot of information that I've added in there in terms of what each one of them is used for and how relevant they are. Some of them are self-explanatory. So with this, Nathan, I would actually would like to give it over to you to see if we haven't had enough time to go through the workshop that you had for us today.
Yep, sure.
I will stop sharing so you can do that, but I'll still be recording.
Yep, will do. So, one moment. Let's try and share my screen. All right, everyone see what I'm looking at? I don't have multiple monitors, so I don't actually know if
Yep.
people can actually see
Yep.
it or not.
I can
Oh,
see
they can?
it. Yep.
All right, cool. Alrighty, so what I had planned today was, I guess like Sammy said, to go and set up Git. So before we do that, we probably need to set up some tools. So the first thing we can do is set up what's called an IDE. If anyone has no idea what that means, it's pretty much just an overglorified text editor, and it just allows us to do some really fancy things when we're writing code, like being able to autocomplete certain commands, or being able to pretty much allow the editor to help us write things faster. And I'm in a Windows 10 VM, which probably didn't really, you probably didn't even really need to know that. But yeah, if we just go and download VS Code, you can do that from the website. If you have winget installed, which is like the Windows package manager, you can also use that. Winget, search, visual.
Because I have PyCharm. I had PyCharm installed for like since like TAFE days.
Yeah.
Is that all right?
Yeah, you can use that, no problem. Yeah. So for the course that we're writing, you can use either Visual Studio Code, or you can use PyCharm, or really any IDE you want to use. It doesn't. I don't think it really matters. It's just a personal preference, I suppose. So we're also going to need to download Git as well. So this is a command line tool, so that we can interact with all of the repositories and our projects and all that. So if I go ahead and install this as well.
Should we do it now as well, or?
Yeah, if you want to, you can follow along if you want.
Yeah, I would definitely recommend that you follow along. So, obviously, if you want Nathan to slow down, if there's anything that you want to stop to get to clarify, feel free, but just play along as well.
And it has to be installed in virtual machine, or is it on the?
No. You can do it on your host if you want.
I would recommend you.
I would normally recommend doing it in a VM, just in case something goes wrong.
Okay, put it in the VM. Okay, no worries.
And also, in this case, Paul, I'm more than happy for you to use your personal computer, because obviously if you need to actually move files around, that can be an issue. But it's a pretty cool project to figure out how to share files between your VM and your host machine. But that's probably one of the only issues that you're going to face.
So keep it in virtual machine, right?
Yeah.
So, okay.
Git.git is what I want. Some people might not have. Some people might not actually have winget installed. So assuming that they don't, if you were to walk through the installer, you would see something like this. So I want my VS Codium. This is just asking me what I want the default editor to be. And I don't know why it's graying out.
I think it's because the Visual Studio Code hasn't been installed yet.
Yeah, it has actually.
Oh.
Right here.
Yeah, there you go.
So that's very interesting. Right, what if I just select Notepad? Yep, sure. So look. Oh, yep, that's fine. A lot of the recommended settings are fine to go with. Yes, we want to use the bundled OpenSSH. We want the OpenSSL library. We want the default console.
Can you go back and obviously describe what's the difference between the default console and the MTT mini TTY?
Yeah, so the mini TTY is like a Linux-based console, and on Windows, so Linux systems and Windows systems display things in a different way. So there are some characters that they have which can't be displayed because they do certain things like displaying characters on different lines, and this slightly differs between Linux and Windows. So what you'll get on Windows, you'll get a /R and a /N that'll need to be appended to the end of a line for it to be displayed on a new line. So if I grab Notepad, for example, and I just type test, when I press enter, you can't see the characters that have been appended to the end of test, but it's actually /R/N. And it's that /R, /N characters or whatever that are appended to the end that it allows Notepad to display some text on a new line. So that's why I can write hey on a different line. And so the reason why this is important is because if you go installing other pieces of software that display things a little bit differently, you can get weird strange artifacts, or how do I explain it? Problems. it can create problems in Windows that can be a bit of a pain to solve. So it's normally just easier just to go with the default Windows console than go with a Linux style console. But it's also personal preference. So yep.
So I guess the point there is because I know for yourself, Alex, you're not using a Windows VM.
Sorry, what was that?
I know you're not using a Windows VM. Do you intend to use Windows for coding, or do you want to use your Linux VM for the coding exercises?
Well,
You
at
can
the
do
moment,
both. Yeah.
I'm on my other computer, so everything is on my other computer, on my where
Yep.
yeah. So That's why,
be
because
honest.
I don't want to install everything here on this computer, or because I have VMs on this computer and stuff, but just my other computers I use it for all studies and VMs and everything.
That's fine, mate. The installation process on Linux is actually a lot simpler than it is on Windows. Like you won't even be asked these questions on
Yeah,
on
that's what I
on a
was
Linux VM.
thinking. Wanted to go. I mean, use in Linux rather than Windows. So yeah, probably I might go with the next side of the thing here.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so
yeah.
Linux you can either use the package managers, one of them being apt or yum or is it dpg or dtp.
Or an Ubuntu, it's like apt-get.
Yeah, so
Yep.
that's the package manager. So you can use either of those. You can also use apt cache to search for an application in case you don't know the name of it, because usually apt would require you to know the name of the package that you wanted to go collect. So if you're not sure
Yeah,
what that package name is, you can actually use the word apt cache search and then the name of like some keyword that you've got, and then app will go and populate, give you an example of every single package in its package library that has those strings that you've just pasted.
yeah, cool.
Yeah. So I guess for the ease
No,
of sticking to this and doing it easy, I'll probably recommend everyone does it in Windows for the time being, unless you really really want to work with Linux. And there's no big difference between both of them. It's all good, the same thing.
Something I should add as well, if you have the Windows Package Manager installed, like if you're using Windows 11, it'll come with the system by default. And if you install it by there, you won't need to go through any of these prompts either.
okay.
Yep.
But I have the host machine as Windows 11, but virtual machine installed as Windows 10. Is
Yeah,
it
that's
going
all right.
all right?
Yeah, that'll be fine.
But the package manager would be there in that.
So for the Windows 10 VM, you would need to manually download the package manager.
Okay.
But on Windows 11, it comes pre-installed. So yep.
Okay.
And what is that package manager again? Nathan, if you don't mind, just helping us.
So it's called WinGet.
Yep.
Yep, WinGet CLI.
Is that an MSI file? Right. Is it? Do you want to try the Microsoft website to see? I'm guessing it's actually Microsoft too.
Yep, it is a Microsoft tool. This is the Microsoft GitHub.
Oh, right. So you're extracting that, and once you've extracted it, you can see the actual. Yep, there you go. So that's that exe file in there.
This is I think you have to actually build it.
Right.
It's So for this machine, I actually got this from a tool I like to use called Debloat Windows 10 by a guy called Chris Titus. And all you have to do is just copy this command line, open it up in PowerShell with an admin prompt. You paste this in. It'll bring up this nice UI. You can choose whatever piece of software you want to install. So what I installed earlier was 7-zip. So if I grab that, I go install or upgrade. It says that it's already installed, but if this wasn't installed, this would say, oh, winget isn't installed, and then it would actually download it for us and then build the thing, add it to the system, environment variables, and then voila, we can use it.
Cool. Can you please post the link to the WinBloat? Debloat.
Yep.
Thank you. Guys, if you've got any questions, feel free to ask as well. Like,
And it's been recorded, right?
yes, this has been recorded.
Sammy? Yeah, I'm not following at the moment, like,
Yeah, that's all right.
but I'll do it later.
That's all right, mate. No problem. So if we're doing this by winget, what we want is the ID where it says git.git, because this is managed by the Linux Foundation. There is another one called Microsoft Git, and that's a different tool. And it's not quite the one that we want to use.
So I can see that you've done a git search, sorry, a winget search. So why are you using that command, if you don't mind?
So because I don't know off by heart this ID.
Yeah.
That's why. So if I just go winget install git.git. This will download the package for me and do cool things. While I'm here, I'll teach you guys a little bit of something about this thing we call environment variables. So on Windows and Linux systems, you have this thing called an environment variable. So what this does is it stores a collection of different file paths. So it stores a collection of different file paths, and when you go and enter in the command prompt or your bash shell on Linux or whatever, what the system will do is, let's say I type in a program or something that doesn't exist called strings. When I enter strings, what the system will do is it will look in this environment variable called path, which maybe I should explain what a variable is. It's pretty much a container that holds some information, and wherever you reference this path, the value that's stored in it will be put in its place. So when I enter the program that doesn't exist called strings, what the system will do is it will look for that executable in every one of these different paths. And you can see that every one of these paths that are separated by this semicolon character allows the system to be able to turn this into like a list of different file paths. So it'll look through, C, Windows, System32, try to find this executable called strings. If it can't find it, it'll move on to the next. It'll try to find it in the Windows directory, and then it will try to find it in the WBM directory, and so on. So by the time it finally gets to the end of this, it goes, oh, I can't find strings anywhere. So that's why it displays this error message. So the reason why I brought this up is that when you're installing tools, sometimes things don't always go as planned, and so those environment variables may not always be updated after a piece of software is installed. So you'll be trying to access it on your system or whatever, you'll get an error like, oh, I can't find this piece of software you're trying to execute or whatever. And it's in those situations that, yeah, you'll probably end up having to do some research about how to fix it online. But a simple way that you can do it is if you just look inside the path environment variable, and let's say, I'm looking for Visual Studio Code, or I'm looking for this program called strings or something, and I can't see the path that's in this environment variable, I can actually add this to the system by I'll just find my strings program first. If I copy the path and then type in the start bar sysdm.cpl, this will open up this window. And if I go to the Advanced tab, Environment Variables, this is a little bit weird on Windows, because something you have to watch out for is that Windows has two path environment variables. One of them is for system tools or whatever that come pre-installed with Windows, and the other one is for tools that the user has installed themselves. So normally we would edit this value, and if I add this here, I click OK, OK, and OK. What will happen is if I try to enter this program called strings, it'll still give me an error, because for this to be updated, I have to close the command prompt and then open it up again for it to refresh in the system. So if I go exit, open this up again, and then try to enter strings, now I can run my program. So probably something that I didn't actually explain is adding those paths to your environment variables allows you to execute that program no matter what directory or what folder or whatever that you are in the system. So if we look at the directory that I have here, you can see that this is in a directory called C users nath desktop strings. But if you look here, I'm in a directory called user nath, and I'm able to execute this because it's in my environment variables. So now that I've installed Git, I should also see those environment variables in here as well. Now there it is. So this means I can enter it on the command line, and voila. It doesn't matter what directory I'm in, I can use that tool. Now I'll just close this. So I'll go back to Git. But does anyone have any questions?
No.
No? Cool.
That's good.
So does everyone know what Git is? Or, actually, I'll just explain anyway. So Git is a fancy platform that allows you to work on tools or projects in a collaborative way, and it's kind of like a nice way of working on projects together, but also showing your friends or your employers or whatever your actual projects and the ability for them to actually walk through and see what your code looks like.
And
I know that probably doesn't make a lot of sense.
That's all right. And also potential employer and the ability for you to be able to refer back to your code as well, because like an example is, Nathan, you were just telling me that how you lost access to your ISO. Well, the same thing can happen where you might delete your code, and having access to a repository where that code is safe from any VM or any device that you're working on, and makes it available, because that's also a critical piece to have as part of your personal branding. Right? Being able to demonstrate that not only can you understand code, you also know how to write one to solve problems. So as you'll be going through the exercises that are coming forward, all the programming exercises, you would actually be using this the Git. Oh, again, if you want to think about the UI side of it, it's called GitHub. So it's actually Git in the back end, but the front end is called GitHub. So if you want to use Git for that, that enables us to be able to say, hey, here is my project, here's what I'm working on, an employer is able to look at it and review it even before you've had the time to go boot up a device or boot up a VM to explain what it is that you do.
To give you guys an example, this is my own GitHub profile. And you can see that I've got multiple projects listed on it where people can just browse, work projects and stuff that I've worked on and know exactly, the kind of stuff that I can do. So this is an example of a piece of software I wrote for analyzing malware. And you can do all sorts of interesting things like look up all the detections or something for a piece of malware or something that you have a hash for. You can see all the security vendors or whatever they have detected it. And you can look up any sort of threat intelligence or information about that and breaches or something that it could be related to. So you can see in the project as well, if I click on any one of these, you can start reading through the code that I've written. I'm not actually going to explain this code because we're not learning Rust in this course. We're learning Python. I don't plan to introduce people into that when they've not touched any coding before. So for anyone who's watching and they're getting a little bit nervous, don't worry, I'm not gonna make you do this. So I suppose the first thing we'll do is we'll go and make an account. So the sign up process is just like any other account that you would create. For some reason, this is freezing up for me.
Yeah, it's probably just refresh the page as well. Yeah, it's still loading.
This is a very fancy sign-up process, but it will just ask you for your email, your password, some way or whatever that you want to recover your account. I went and made a new account just for this demonstration. So after making your account, you would see an interface that's a little bit like this. And straight away, you can jump in and make a repository to store your projects, store your work or whatever. So, Sammy, what do you think we should do? Do we want to do a public repository or private one?
Eventually, look, obviously, depending on what people are feeling or how comfortable you are, but often what would happen is, depending on the project you're working on, there might be some things that you're like, oh, that's something that is private to me. I do not want anyone to see that. So you can toggle each project to either be private or public. I believe, Nathan, you can do that on a project level, not necessarily on the repository level as well.
You could do that on a repository level.
So yes, so that's basically how this would work. So, but for anything that has to do with the things you're doing on this platform, on the CyberLynk platform, it makes sense to obviously leave that public because you want people to be able to see that, for the potential employers to see what you're working on, and ultimately be able to ask you questions about it as well. So it's a mixture of both.
Yep, absolutely. The process for creating a private repository and then making commits to it is a little bit more complicated, but not that much. So maybe just to keep things simple, I'll make a public repository. And I forgot to give it a name, so this is available.
Another thing to note is that obviously when you're trying to name your repository, you want to make sure that you give it a name that actually aligns with what you actually want it to do. So like if you're naming a repository something that doesn't ultimately spells professionalism or what have you, that's something that you're going to have to deal with later as well. So just like I guess You know,
Are you trying to tell me that PE potato is not professional?
what is ferocious pilo, whatever, pillow, outrageous soda.
Oh, ferocious pillow.
Yeah. So, anyways, guys, did not follow Nathan's footstep. Actually, name it something that is in English.
Alrighty. So, yep, after you make your first repository, you'll get some instructions on how you can use the command line or whatever to make a commit to it, and how you can link it to that repository. I guess I'll show you both ways how you can actually do this in VS Code with the UI, but then we'll also do it with the command prompt as well. So if I just, let's see, it's been a while since I've get started by creating a new file. It typically doesn't actually look like this when you make a repository, so it's a little bit different for me.
I wanted to obviously highlight that
Test repo.
So yeah, I think it's probably a good place to sort of hold off for today, and then we can continue on this same topic. But I guess I just really want to clear some expectation. I know it's a bit messy at the moment, but ultimately at the end of this next few weeks, you guys will have a working Git account, a working Git pipeline, and that will enable you to actually start committing all of your exercises and everything that you do into your own GitHub repository and your own GitHub project. So that way, if you know, I say you're having a chat with anyone, you can actually work with someone collaboratively as well, without it being stored on your local device somewhere. So that's really it there. Look, I wanted to obviously give people some time to see if anyone had any lab question or any exercise question that they would like some assistance on.
Yeah, all good from my end. And I've already installed the GitHub, created an account a while ago. But this VS Code one, I think I need to set up in yeah, but
Cool, mate.
Yeah, awesome. Nitha, do you have any questions or anything that you need a hand with? I know some of this is probably like new. You're going, I don't know, that was too fast. This video will be available, and you can slow it down and go step by step and follow. Also, just note that this is just one of our Nerd Night sessions, so it's not necessarily meant to be that structured. So there's going to be content on the learning management platform for this that actually provides a guided pathway for you to go and do this. So don't stress about it, and if you have any questions, obviously reach out to me.
Yeah, sure. I have done this GitHub and Visual Code, those things during the uni, so I have a bit of understanding. But with the VM, you said it should be 16 GB. Is it compulsory, or because I don't have like that? I got a MacBook with 8 GB, which is my personal. Other one is my work laptop. I need to get approval if I'm using VM on Windows.
Yeah, no,
So
you done. One of the things I also added there as well, you can use it, you can use the free tier in AWS, which is one of the things I'm going to show you guys how to do that. So you can technically have your lab running on the cloud. It's another opportunity to learn something new. But Nathan, don't stress if you don't have the right RAM available for you to do work. Your VM can still run with 8 gig RAM. So you just need to give it maybe 2 gig or 3 gig, and then your system can run with the remaining one. It's just advisable that you have more RAM, because like something like Edge or Chrome or Firefox, they all use they're all heavy, heavy RAM intensive applications.
yeah.
So having enough is really, really good.
And moreover, one thing, I have used Kali Linux already. So which one you would recommend to use, Windows or Kali?
Nathan, I'll actually give you that one to answer.
Personal preference.
Oh,
If you
okay.
if you feel more comfortable using Kali Linux, you can go for it.
Okay, because I know a bit of Kali Linux, the installation app, get those things, but I was thinking to do something different. When let's see, I haven't installed anything. I got a Kali on my personal laptop. Let's see how I go.
Yeah, so obviously
And
note that this again, like I'm trying to, and Alex, I had a chat with Alex and Paul about this. I'm trying to make this Saturday sessions a little bit different from being a structured learning environment. I want it to be a place where we can all catch up, hang out, and and actually chat with each other, and then learn something at the same time. I don't want it to just be chatting as well. I want us to actually learn something. So the conversation we're having right now is different from what you actually have to do on the learning the LMS platform. So neither for the LMS platform, you actually have to build your Linux VM from scratch all over again, and you have to build your Windows VM all over again from scratch, just to help with that knowledge building side of things, like doing it yourself without any guide. There's no guide, so you have to go and research how to do that, and then do it all over yourself again, just to build on your confidence. So if you've already worked on Kali before, I would challenge you to actually go and do Ubuntu or Fedora or Linux, like Alex recommended. Alex doesn't stop gibbering about it. Actually, apparently it's the best.
No, it's just one of the other ones. It's a personal preference because it's Linux is a thing that you can find your own distribution, and it's not because someone likes Kali and someone likes, I don't know, Ubuntu, someone likes, I don't know, Fedora, Red Hat, whatever. So yeah.
100%. So I wanted to, before we jump off today, unless Alex, did you have any question?
Yeah, so I signed up and everything on GitHub, but I remember you say, because I just missed out that part where we have so I'm not creating any repositories right now. So should I just leave it as it is?
Leave it as it is.
Yeah.
Like I said, there's also going to be really good structured documentation on how you can actually do this in the platform. Or I get really excited and make it a challenge. You go figure it out. Alex is like, not again. But it's just something that you guys need to learn and get a lot more comfortable with, and learning how to actually commit code in there, and not just using mouse and keyboard, but using the actual command line. And these are the sort of things that obviously set you apart from the crowd.
Yeah.
To add to that, sorry.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say.
No, because I think my question would be a little bit long. So Paul, maybe you ask first, and I'll ask afterwards.
I'll let Nathan go first, and then I'll.
Very, very modest group of people. Very kind.
I'm sorry, guys.
Mine was simple one, which is I want to say. Okay, Nathan, just a quick one.
Yep.
Said Sammy that we can move that to the cloud, right? Is it we can move the virtual lab to the cloud, AWS? You can set up the free tier one.
Yes, so you can do that. If you want, I can send inside Discord, in a Discord server under the NerdKnight session or January, I can send you a link on how to set up your AWS free tier account, the tier account. Now, the one thing to note is that it's only free for 1 year. So if you don't need it right now.
Yeah, similar to Azure, right? I have the Azure one.
Yeah.
I've done it in the past. But I just wanted to know if we can move that there. And the reason why, as I said, the resources.
Yes.
With the personal computer.
Yes, resourcing is a problem. Like even mine, I've got a 16 gig, but it's hard to have all the VMs running at the same time. So yeah, so that's something that obviously is going to be eventually built. So the lab for the same is actually done on AWS or on Azure, because I don't think you guys have local resources to be able to do that. So that's going to obviously show you how to create the free tier account and how to spin off resources using that.
Sammy, what about 32 gigabytes? Is that enough to
if
spin
you've got
up
32 gig, actually, why don't you do you have a 64? That's even better. but 32 is pretty good because that means you can actually allocate like 4 gigs per each virtual machine because the lab, the attack and defend lab, which Alex, you've seen that before, that you guys are going to be using for the Splunk and log scale and elk stack and everything. That's going to include a Kali Linux box, a Windows workstation box, which is what you guys have built already, and then one domain controller. So if you give each one of those 4 gigs each, that obviously gets you to 16 gigs, and then the remaining 16 gig you can use that for your normal compute power. So if you do have the compute, you don't have to move to AWS.
Yeah, that's the reason why I use the other computer, because this laptop has 16 gigabytes only. So
100%.
that's why I just moved.
You are literally how many? Nathan, you only have 8 gigs. You are times
Yeah.
4, about times 4 of what Nathan's laptop's capacity can do.
Maybe I will get a refurbished lab with 16 GB RAM. I can
Yeah,
check that.
yeah.
I do that.
You can
Oh,
upgrade it if you want, because that's what I did with a laptop I had. My dad's laptop, so I used to use another laptop, and it had 8 gigabytes as well. It was a gaming laptop, but for some reason it had 8. I just added one more stick, and it became 16. And
I can't do that for my MacBook.
Mac. Yes, sorry. It doesn't work.
She's with Apple. She swallowed the
Yeah.
Kool-Aid from Apple. Guys, I wanted to. Sorry, Paul, you had something else to say.
And I would say for that, it's better to move it to the cloud for the time being, and there's more on that.
100%. 100%. So,
I have a question. Oh, sorry.
Nathan, you go.
I kind of have a question for all of you guys. Would you prefer to see this in Linux or Windows? I'm actually a little bit surprised to see how much of you, how many of you guys actually, I don't know, sound like you're familiar with Linux. I was expecting everyone to just not have any idea and just be Windows users or something.
Yeah, the Linux one for my it's more easy command line, easy.
Yep.
Straightforward compared to Windows. So many steps, and sometimes it crashes, and then you can start again. So much of trouble, and always there is a bug kind of a situation all the time. So
I'm
the Linux
familiar.
is,
Familiar with Linux because doing lab sessions during like lectures those days while studying. That's why I'm familiar with Linux.
Okay.
Yeah. But still, when you're explaining the Git and everything visual, so we can just recall things easily. That's where, sure.
Cool. Alex, have no preference?
To be honest, I don't know, because Windows is just an everyday thing, so I don't have like much appreciation with it. But I haven't worked at the command line, because when you do like online studying with like cybersecurity and everything, most of it is done on Linux as well. Like, so I don't know. I'm pretty.
Yeah,
majority of the learning was through Linux. I was more familiar through that, and because I'm not really what do you call know all the commands and stuff, but I can find somewhere and start doing that.
Yeah, I think ultimately just being good at both. Like, some people didn't even know that you could run a bunch of
definitely, I need
Windows commands.
Want to know more.
Yeah.
Windows.
Because the reality is in the actual workplace, like you're more likely to be using Windows than Linux in an actual job. So
that was
being
that was actually one of the main reasons I chose to use Windows instead of Linux.
Then it's better to use Windows though, because we are trying to get into workplace. Yeah.
That's the case, and then we'll stick with Windows.
Yeah.
All right.
Cool. All right, guys. I've got some update. So our next live event in Melbourne will be happening I kind of I'll record this just for everyone else's sake. So the next live event is going to be happening in Melbourne on 18th on the 18th of September. You guys will see the post for that coming through on Monday. So it'll I believe it's a Wednesday evening. So starting from 5:30 p.m. to 8 p.m. Just like I don't know if you've been. I think only Alex have been to that before. Alex, do you wanna talk everyone through what the experience was like?
Well, I don't know what's prepared for now, because if I tell them one thing, next time it could be just completely
Well,
different.
not
So
necessarily what it is, like just
is
the
it
experience, I guess.
relevant? Sorry?
I was more referring to that, like the experience, not necessarily what it is, like because it's going to change over time, right? But the structure of the meetup,
Yeah.
how did you find it? Like, what was
Oh,
different?
it was interesting because it started with Sammy's presentation. Then we moved to sort of like a networking part where we met new people, just catching up with old acquaintances, and then we moved on to like a practical lab thing. So building up a lab on our laptop. That didn't go as expected. We should have went more straightforward, but yeah, but it was a very I would say good attempt, because most cybersecurity meetups are just about someone presenting something and just networking, but this also included some hands-on stuff, and it's very hard to. It was like a pilot version, and I think even though it didn't go as Sammy planned and the team, but I think it still was good because there was a lot of lessons learned to how to do it next
Yeah.
time.
So this, yeah,
So yeah, overall was a good experience. To be
100%.
honest, it was a good
So
experience.
like that's the same feedback we're getting from everyone else. So again, I do recommend that everyone here and those who will be watching this later come to that, because it gives you an opportunity to obviously begin to see other people within the industry and create relationships, and obviously an opportunity to learn something new. So the workshop over the next 3 months will be on Wireshark. So if you want to learn Wireshark, please come to that. We're going to go from beginner level Wireshark to to more intermediate level Wireshark, using Wireshark to do some really cool things. So like I said, the date is the 18th of September, and it will start from 5 p.m. So 5:30 p.m. So 5:30. If you want to help out, come at that time. But we set up and network, have a chat with people, and then the actual event, the first event of the night, which is a speaker. We'll be speaking from 6 p.m. and then that goes on to 6:45, and then the workshop will go for about an hour.
Okay.
Yes.
Sammy, are you talking about like a face-to-face event? Interesting. Okay. Yeah. Case you guys didn't know, I'm actually from South Australia. I'm not even in Melbourne. So
Oh,
yeah.
nice.
Yet you got to use the word yet.
You're living
Yes.
you're living in the past for us, because you're half an hour behind. So you
Yep,
live in the
that's
I
right.
past.
like you, Alex. You read my mind, right? I keep reminding him that.
Well, that's not as bad as living, I don't know, in Perth, when you're like 3-4 hours behind. So
Yeah,
literally,
it's
like
like 2.5 hours or something.
Yeah, and even worse in daylight savings, when Melbourne goes I think forward by another hour.
and someone from Brisbane or something just lives an hour behind.
Yeah.
And like, wow, you live in the past.
That's why you remember when they had the CrowdStrike situation. That's why we knew about it. We were suffering it before the rest of the world wake up and they're like, "What on earth is this?" Yeah, like
Yeah, because everyone was
yeah,
either
we had dealt with it already during the day, and then I think it was like 2 a.m. or so. Everyone else was we're waking up and going, "Oh, there's a global outage," and whenever I was just going, I was in bed and going, "Yeah, seen that, done that. We've already dealt with it before you guys actually came to today." Like that was one of the times when it actually made it really very real to me. Right. It's like, jeez. But look, I really want to thank you guys for jumping in today. I think it's been a lovely conversation. Again, this is sort of the vibe that I want us to start creating. So it's not I don't want to speak at you guys. I do not want to speak at anyone. I want us to actually turn this into a proper nerd night where we actually, deliberating, learning something new, tinkering. Sometimes we'll actually just catch up and, I'll be researching something. We'll be learning from that. I'll be, talking to you guys through how I'm thinking about it, and, trying to solve problems together.
Sure.
Yeah, I have a, I have a,
Likewise, yeah. Go ahead.
So,
Good
Alex,
question.
you go.
yeah, just a couple of questions. The small question is, if you're going to use a VM for like coding and stuff, like the Windows VM, Linux, whatever, looks like because the Windows VM is cut off from the internet, like because of the settings that was required from us, it's literally they cut off, so you can't download
For that
anything and
one,
stuff.
you can change the networking back. So if you've completed it and you've taken the screenshot for that. So guys, Alice is referring to Unit 1, where you had to configure. So if you've done that, just
I already have done that. Yeah, I think you should have seen my screenshot.
I saw that. Yeah, so just revert your IP address back to DHCP and then set it back to either NAT or bridged.
Yeah.
Just one more thing, because Nathan asked about preference, either Windows or Linux, because why Linux, for example, interests me, because I've never used it as an everyday OS. So I've used Windows like all my life, and Linux was just like a tool. So it's like, I don't know, having a hammer or something. You don't have a hammer, or you don't use it all your life,
everywhere.
right? You don't sleep with a hammer. It's like Android phone is Linux, yes, but it's a little bit different. It's like having a hammer. So Linux, in my understanding, is a tool, but that's why doing some stuff other than just, I don't know, doing labs and in Linux would be just interesting. But obviously that's my perspective of Linux now. So I just wanted to turn it into something more everyday, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, there's definitely
Sounds
a lot
good,
of
mate. We can do
Linux.
both.
Sorry, Nathan. There's a lot of Linux distributions
No, you're okay.
that looks very much closer to Windows. The UI. So, like, again, I think this is part of the topic we discussed in Unit 1. So the Linux operating system is basically, again, it's just a kernel. Anyone can just build a UI, a graphical user interface, and slap it on top of the kernel, and it will look like there's one. I've forgotten the name of it that looks so close to being Windows. Like,
I know what you're talking about, but actually it's so shady and it's so dodgy, that thing. So I've watched a couple of videos on it. People just say don't even try to work with it because it's so dodgy, and also it's just too dodgy. So
that's an example of obviously
Is this Zoran
someone taking
OS?
the kernel.
Yeah, I don't know what I'm talking about. Because they try to copy Windows stuff and everything, but it looks so badly done. And also they're like, we like Windows whatever, but then they're like, we are Windows Ubuntu, and just it's more pain. They say that's why I just use like something closer user friendly like Zorin or Mint or something like that. That is actually a Linux machine without any dodgy stuff, and it's like user friendly and etc. So yeah.
That's good. Nathan, you had something to say.
No, I actually didn't. It's okay.
Because I've another question. Sorry, just a big one. Because in my understanding, GitHub is a repository and everything, but I still don't really can't wrap my head around of a thing called Git, because I understand GitHub, a repository, right? So you can use, I don't know, Visual Code or like, I don't know, PyCharm and stuff to assemble code. That's what I thought. Like that's my understanding, because coding in me and a little bit in we far aside, so far apart. So that's why I thought like you use something like PyCharm or something to assemble, put in the code, and then you just put it into like a repository like GitHub. So that's where Git comes in. Yeah.
So the difference is that Git is the technology, so it's the tool. GitHub is the platform.
Tool for what specifically? Like, what do you do in Git? Like, do you do coding in Git? Is it like PyCharm or Visual Studio or?
No. So Git is the tool that you use to communicate with the GitHub platform. You can use it to communicate with other platforms that use Git as the piece of software to manage your projects and whatever. So there's another one called GitLab. There's another one called Bitbucket.
Yes.
These are all platforms that use the Git technology
in the back end. So
they're separate.
basically,
So it's like a middleware
Yeah,
sort of thing. So you have like the software where you take the code and you have the repository, and Git is like the middleware in between, connecting those two sort of.
Yeah.
And it's got a version control system, so that's really what it is.
Okay, yeah, thanks for the explanation, because it was a little bit confusing.
Yeah, don't worry, mate. I was confused for a long time when I started coding as well. Go on.
So is it? Am I understanding it correctly that Git is just making it easier? So because I saw that you have the options to connect it with different platforms where to do the actual coding. So they just take away the manual job. So instead of just copying and pasting the code into a repository manually, because of Git, you use your platform, you put all the coding in there, and it automatically like syncs or something in the repo, right?
Yep.
Am I understanding correctly?
Well, so you still have to manually tell Git to update the repository online, but what will happen is that Git will pretty much read through all of your files, and so it'll
scan for changes.
It'll pretty much look at what has been changed since the last time you uploaded content onto GitHub, and then it'll add those extra lines or extra pieces of text or whatever that you added to your files to the copy that's stored online.
Fair enough. That's actually good. So you need to go through manually, but like you added one like, I don't know, one line or something, or you commented something out, or you added just a comment, and so it gets synchronized with.
Yep, that's exactly right. So Git will track all the files that you've made changes to.
Yeah.
So then you can say, I want to update all of these files, or something like that. You'll type out a message or something to say what all of these files are supposed to do, or what this code or whatever that you're uploading to GitHub is all about. And then you'll enter a command like push, and then it will upload the content to GitHub.
Okay. Always something new to learn. Thank you. Thanks, Nathan.
Absolutely.
Appreciate it.
No problem, mate.
Sammy, just a quick question, because I remember the those installation sort of windows, and I remember because for the Blue Team meetup we had last time, wasn't one of the things we had to do like install Git or something, or my memory is messing up now?
No.
Because I remember some of those installation windows, and we went through them either at home. I think it was like a prerequisite thing to do before going to the meeting. So you had to install
workshop, right? Yeah. So
for the workshop.
That was for you needed to download VirtualBox and Vagrant. Now you needed to install Git because the actual file was hosted on GitHub. So that was why you needed to download it. So essentially, what Nathan described is exactly right. Like, and the way you're thinking about it as well Alex is correct. So Git is the operation that is the piece of software that is responsible for the backend communication between GitHub and your computer.
Mm-hmm.
So that was why we downloaded and installed Git then.
Okay, fair enough. That sounds okay. Because I remembered, and like this is like deja vu something, but this is not deja vu. It's just I remember the workshop because when you asked me about the workshop and the meetup, I'm like, oh, that actually clicked something.
Yep, cool. Well, the next one is coming up, and I'm excited. I'm excited about the Wireshark. There's a lot to learn about the Wireshark, and it's one of those tools that's underrated. That once you know how to use it and you get it, it can open doors for you. So, guys, I'm looking forward to obviously seeing you there, and I think you guys know that the content for bytes encoding and numbers is out. Feel free and go through that. If you have any question, let me know. I've already provided some additional training, obviously, over the last 2 weeks, just really explaining the reason for binary and how all of that kind of connects back together. If you have any other additional questions about any of that, feel free to reach out, and I'll be more than happy to help out. Other than that, um,
Sounds
thank you
good.
very much, Nathan. I appreciate your time, mate, and looking forward to obviously
No
having
problem.
you. And then thank you so much, everyone, for jumping in. As usual, this recording will be uploaded to the YouTube channel. So feel free to let me know and reach out. Like I always say, I am a phone call or a text message away. It's all towards gaining an edge. So
Oh, wow.
enjoy the rest of your
Cool,
night,
man.
and thank you.
Thank you, Sammy.
Thank
Thank you.
you. Thanks,
Thanks,
Nat.